And the command goes out to fire up. The next pair, up top fuel. How many times where you can hear from a driver leaving the finish?
Inches, that 20-foot length is leveraged to transfer over 10,000 foot-pounds of torque to the rear Goodyear slicks. There is no high-performance car or race car with an internal combustion engine that can outrun or out-accelerate a top fuel dragster that burns through 1.5 gallons of nitromethane fuel per second. A supercharger that sits on an all-aluminum V8 engine will produce 60 pounds of boost in the course of the 1,000-foot run. And let's take a look at our lineup here for the first round of top fuel.
For Ron Smith, 82 years old, and he goes 275 miles per hour. And I gotta tell you, you know what Ron Smith just did? Ron Smith just said a statement. Tony Stewart. Hey, Pacific Raceways, do me a favor. 2 hours in 86-degree heat to re-prep and scrape and work on that left lane. And Tony Stewart just went 311 miles per hour down, and that was not an easy job the safety safari had. Miles per hour. Sean Reed's car a little bit earlier, the 7-11, 92 miles per hour. Josh's car almost made it. I thought he was... silent just before the strike. But Brittany Torrence has now dragged that car to the starting line 3 times, and 3 times it has gone down the racetrack. Jasmine Salinas goes 415, 213 miles per hour. We are down to 4, and that means it's time to race for real for the first time this weekend in Camaro 2. Antron goes 3.906, only 303 miles per hour. Antron had a cylinder out much earlier on the run than Justin Ashley, who was 45 on the tree. Justin Ashley's dominance of Top Fuel. In one of the wackiest pairs of Top Fuel we've seen all year. Steve Torrence double-stepped. Doug Coletta slammed the gas. He was 007. Doug with a super comp light to win it on a hole shot over Steve Torrence, who goes a quicker 423 and could not get there. Wow, the bit go. U.S. Nationals instant replay. Watch again. Steve stages. Here comes Doug. Does he flicker the bull? Not really, but Steve, the double step, pop, pop. Doug just slammed on it. The big reaction time advantage. Almost 1.5 tenths of a second that Doug got off the line first, and then a coast fest to the 1,000-foot mark. Doug got there first by 0.05 of a second. A reminder that that camera is at the 1320. The car's racing. Lived to the finish line, but I think he would have had a chance to improve. Sidon is 391. Tony going to race taking the number 12 spot. Billy Torrence goes 4:03.9, 247 off the throttle, somewhere around 750 feet. Billy going to race day in the number 11 spot. 412, 226, Tony Stewart. And there is a bunch of fluid coming out of the back of Clay Milliken's car down there. Clouds of smoke are bad. With low ET of the heat this weekend. No dragster had been in the 70s in the heat of the day until now. Steve goes 385, 4, 323. Plenty good run, but a 379.8 for Jasmine Salinas announces her presence in the Top Fuel field this weekend. And we head down to Joe for the finals of the Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge.
All right, Pacific
Champion. And for that matter, the regular season champ as well. A pair of Toyotas. Justin Ashley with his third Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty win of the year. He won it in Charlotte, he won it in Chicago, and he wins it here. Joe.
down here with crew chief Mike Green, another Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge win. Can you imagine a world where those
things? She is in a bit of a tenuous position, sitting 10th in the points. She now needs to make sure she finishes in the top 10 over the next 3 to 4 races to make sure she qualifies for the NHRA countdown to the championship, the playoff season, if you will, in drag racing, and she's beginning to make her case. And always the mark of a good team, a very well-prepared team that can come out and make 2 good qualifying runs, especially under the lights in the dark, when the track conditions cool off, the engines make more power, and this is a team that rose to the occasion and laid down some performance. We look now at the point standings in Top Fuel Eliminator to see exactly where Brittany stands and how close the competition is. Josh Hart is just 51 points. The Flavor Pack Top Fuel dragster of Brittany Forrest and the Leatherwood Distillery Rack Financial Top Fueler of Tony Schumacher to square off side by side. Brittany now knows that Josh Hart has won in the first round. She now knows he is within 30 points unless she wins this round. Brittany Forrest's car goes silent, and Tony Schumacher drives around a 398.6, an eminently beatable run, which she was in the process of doing before it all went pear-shaped. Brittany Forrest is eliminated.
What a tough break for Brittany Forrest. She was well on her way to victory based on the incremental numbers. We'll get another look at this. It was Tony Schumacher off the starting line first. However, Brittany Forrest's car had... Take a look. You can see that the problem that Tony Schumacher had was his car shook, and that was the reason he fell so far behind. But before Brittany Forrest gets to the 8th mile, her car loses power. It's under acceleration here. There's really no indication of any engine failure. It looks like there are some sparks, so there is some engine damage, and more than likely it wasn't Brittany, it wasn't the driver that shut the car down. It was the car that lost power due to some mechanical issue.
So the nightmare of any Top Fuel racer, a silent engine at the top of the drag strip. This is Doug Coletta, the Mac Tool Toyota Mobil 1 Top Fueler, currently the points leader. He's defending world champion in the category. He is up the largest margin he's ever been, and we can see that Brittany Forrest's position has become even more perilous with a round win by Josh Hart. He's going to close that gap. He'll advance. And Billy Torrence, the Capco Contractors car, 8th currently in the national point standings of Top Fuel Eliminator. And the two cars thundering down the drag strip. It is Doug Coletta. Coletta 367, 337.41. The fastest speed in the history of this drag strip by some 2 miles an hour, and the low ET of the entire race so far. A thunderous effort here by Coletta and crew.
As good as this Coletta team has been, it was going to be Billy Torrence having to bring the fight to Doug Coletta, the defending series champion, and that he did. Both drivers pretty close off of the starting line, and it wasn't Doug Coletta pulling away, driving away from Billy Torrence. Billy Torrence was there, but for Doug Coletta, they absolutely lowered the boom and read the conditions. You saw all those track specialists on the racetrack. They fed that information to the 200
Top Fuel, and this is a pair that encapsulates the world of NHRA drag racing better than probably anything possibly could. Tony Stewart, a man who was in 6 racing halls of fame, who was a multiple-time NASCAR champion. You know his history. Driving the Direct Connection Dodge Power Brokers Top Fuel dragster. They have been scuffling a bit this year, trying to move their way up in the standings. And young Jasmine Salinas, a second-generation racer, thrust into the seat of this car when her father experienced medical problems earlier in the year, sits on equal footing, if not better footing, than the man she's raking against.
Coming into this matchup, they have the better car. It's more consistent. They have the performance. It seems more predictable. But when you talk about Tony Stewart, he comes equipped and prepared to win. He can get off the starting line more than likely ahead of Jasmine. He just needs a car underneath him.
Tony smokes the tires, and for the second time this year, Jasmine Salinas will advance to the second round, and she'll do it with panache. 377.7, 330 miles an hour. Jasmine Salinas, another of the cars that Brittany Forrest must worry about. And Tony's got to get nervous too, because he's going backwards in the points.
Well, we talked about it at the top of the show, and this happened to Tony Stewart in the very first qualifying run, and it appears that they're arming up the engine. You have to give this motor some power. You have to take some of the compression out. You have to spin the blower. You have to do all of these things, put some weight on the clutch. That is what is going to accelerate the car. But when you give it too much of any of the above, that car will overpower the racetrack, and that balance initially for the car is most important, that it plants the tire and instantly starts to accelerate, and this team just doesn't have the car that they want to go into the countdown with yet.
You saw Leah Pruitt, who was Tony Stewart's wife. They're expecting their first child. She made it all the way to the end of the season last year. She was involved in the championship for the Capco Contractors Toyota Redline Oil Mac Tools car. This may be just what the doctor ordered, Tony. We have seen some interesting trends out of Steve, and one of the trends we've seen is mental interruption.
everything's between the ears. I mean, these cars require so much focus in the driver position because it happens in such a short amount of time. And if you're ever able to witness these cars in person, you just have to see it once to realize how they shake the ground when they launch off the starting line. Just the noise, the acceleration, the smell of nitro, everything very distinct. And for Steve Torrence, he just doesn't seem to be the same driver. He doesn't seem to be as focused. But you look at the flip side of that. This is still a very competitive car. He has flashes of the driver that he can be. Coming into the countdown, he may want to try to find that groove again.
You hear the kind of parabolic sound of a top fuel run there. The engine comes up, it pulls down, and then roars through 3709 at 333.
In a car that burns nitromethane, that generates this kind of horsepower, it'll only rev up to 8,500 RPM, give or take 100. You can hear the engine pull down. That is the clutch application. It is starting to weld the clutch and apply all the power to the rear tires by the 8th mile. That's about 3 seconds into the run. So the pitch drop is 1,500 RPM. Then you hear it start to rev up again as it approaches the finish line.
Bruno's with Josh Hart and Sean Langdon.
That was a great round of eliminations and top fuel. We're watching our back here as Steve Torrence rolls up. Steve likes to play some games down here and have a little fun. You know, you guys had a great drag race. Sean, you got on the good side of that drag race right there. Brian Hewson seems to really get in a hold of that tune-up right now. Does that spell trouble for the competition?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it gives me a lot of confidence, but going up against Josh in the second round, they've had a great car this weekend, and that a great team like that's not going to stay down for a long time. So we weren't taking them lightly. We gave it everything that we had. Josh got me a little bit on this.
They hear the engine rev up, they feel the car no longer accelerate, and the good drivers are able to manage the throttle and ease out of it and reapply the throttle. By the time the rear tire has actually regained traction, Tony Schumacher does it well.
Some may think you're looking into the eyes of a person who might be intimidated racing a world champion in the form of Doug Coletta. But once you thump Tony Stewart in the first round, nobody might seem that scary, right?
Hey, for Jasmine Salinas, she's been putting the time in. She is so committed, so dedicated. This team is housed out of Brownsburg, Indiana. She spends most of her time there. She's surrounded by a very good, very efficient crew. She just seems so much more comfortable than she was earlier in the year. You can see it in the performance of the car, and you combine that with the performance of the car, and it's just a different driver that has a level of confidence instilled in her.
So both Doug Coletta, the Mac Tools car, and Jasmine have finished their burnouts, and Jordan Vandergriff has a whole lot to tell us about both of these.
Tony, just like you were talking about Jasmine Salinas, she has looked a lot more comfortable lately in this race car, and I think it could be because she ran here in A fuel, so she's familiar with this racetrack. As a rookie, any familiarity helps on any racetrack. And as far as Doug Coletta goes, he set the track record with a 367 at 337 miles per hour. He said he's got to just take it one round at a time.
He does, and the one evolution we've seen really out of both of these drivers, Doug Coletta learned how to be a champion last year. He had been trying for 25 years basically to get to that plane, and he executed. What we have seen out of Jasmine Salinas, and more importantly out of her crew, has been an approach that has taken her really unexpectedly jumping into this car. They did not try to force her ahead of her comfort level early, and what that's done is given her a comfort level now to stand in the ring with Doug Coletta. She is hanging on his bumper down there at the finish line. It's Coletta, 372.9, just barely outrunning a 373.8. Nice job by Doug.
There's so many things that have to happen for Jasmine, and it all starts on the starting line. You can see Rob Flynn, he gave it a shot. They were separated only by 100th of a second in terms of performance, but it was the whole shot, the starting line advantage from Doug Coletta. That's 500ths of a second, and you can see that he had 7 cylinders as that car approached the finish line. So that was, you could subtract about 1,400 horsepower, and he's still a very impressive time. This team laying up, and Jasmine giving it her best.
So we watch Jasmine one more time, Tony.
There's the launch for Jasmine Salinas, and it was a clean run. Look, the tuner did their job. They made the right adjustments for a warmer track, and anytime we say the track is warmer, we know some of the grip goes away. So they made the right adjustments. They just ran up against the wrong car, the wrong driver.
Top fueler, we see it once a year in Torrance, a 374.9 at 330 miles an hour with a sub 75 light. Serviceable stuff there. His first round win got him a second round buy run at the Capco Contractors Redline Oil Toyota Top Fueler, and it was once again a workaday yeoman-like 370, 333 miles an hour, 95 reaction time. As we can see that long, almost prehensile chassis beginning to arch up as it goes past the 8th mile, pulling harder at the 8th mile than it does at the starting line for a Top Fuel dragster, and heading across the finish line with all 8 cylinders firing in unison. Then it is Steve Torrence and Doug Coletta. This was a huge matchup, with Doug Coletta having made the last 4 finals in a row in the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series Tour. Steve Torrence stopped that streak cold in its tracks, running 373.6 at 330 miles an hour. The 094 light is the only major concern Steve Torrence may bother himself with considering coming into the final round against Sean Langdon. Because if there's one thing we can count on in a final round, Sean Langdon's not going to be 094. We look at the championships, 4 for Torrence. The wins, 54 versus 17 for Langdon. Langdon's never won here. Steve's got 2. The last win for Steve a year ago in this place in the Pacific. Fascinating matchup because Sean Langdon was as hungry as Steve Torrence was for the last couple of seasons before we rolled into Gainesville, Florida this year. This car had really not helped its driver a lot. The driver always tried to help this car, but the car wasn't doing a lot to help him. And as we have seen over the course of the first 11 races of this season, Sean Langdon and that car are a unified front. And man, it can get downright scary for everybody else when they line it all up.
Well, right now it seems that they each have something that the other wants. Sean Langdon wants a better car. Steve Torrence wants to get off the starting line a little better. That alone is going to make this very interesting.
That is the only concerning number that Steve Torrence carries with him into this final. If we just look back over the course of the day of how they left and when they left, it was a 96 light for Torrence last round. He just can't do it again.
He has shown some flashes, and again, everything is between the ears. He's been able to do it before, and of course, there's a lot of things happening at home. He has another new child, and maybe he just, I'm not saying that he does, but it seems that he has lacked the intensity, but, here he is again. We're getting closer to the countdown. You got a tough competitor. Sometimes that will bring out the dog in you.
And it did. He was out first. He was ahead of Langdon at the finish line stripe. It is Steve Torrence for the first time in a calendar year. A 396 to an engine expiring 417 for Sean Langdon. Steve Torrence has finally broken through again.
That's a mean little dog right there, and I'll tell you why. He got off the starting line first. Great execution. The car was quicker in 60 feet, but as we get another look at this guy never quit driving the car. Now, this is championship instincts right here. It's not the safest thing to do. There are not a lot of drivers that can pull it off. We've seen Doug Coletta, one of the very few drivers that can take one of these high-powered cars when it's losing traction and manage the throttle. That was something that Steve Torrence did. We'll get another look at this as he gets out of the car and celebrates.
And Steve Torrence has hacked his way past Antron Brown for the number 4 spot in the points behind Sean Langdon with that final round victory. It is something that this team has wanted for so long, and they continue to work and keep their head down. We had that conversation with him earlier in the pits with Bruno, where he talked about the different things that they have done and how they have done it. But this is the guy that won 4 straight championships in this class.
Well, there's the launch right there. You can see the problem that set in early. That raw fuel spewing out of the pipe for Sean Langdon really put him at a big disadvantage. There it is there as the cars go by. But take a look, take a listen to Steve Torrence. Spinning the tires at the 8th mile off the throttle, throttle maintenance. There's the raw fuel coming out. That's the misfire in the cylinder for Sean Langdon. And it wasn't over there. You could hear and he could see that Steve Torrence was having problems, but it was that fancy footwork for Steve Torrence that allowed him to get this car to recover. And it's like a bottle of fine wine how he drove that car to this victory.
And the Kilgore Express picks up top fuel victory number 56.
Well, the last time four-time world champion Steve Torrence won, he was only a father of one. Now you're a father of two. It has been a full calendar year. I couldn't even tell by the celebration that you were excited. Talk about that run for you, because you had a lot going on in that car.
Man, I'll tell you what, you take these things for granted when you get them pretty often. And we're taking this one home to my new baby girl. My wife's birthday. We've been a while. Hell, I'm out of breath. I didn't do nothing but hit the gas like 3 times. Sean Langdon, Khalid Air, those guys been bad to the bone. I told you earlier I was trying to take him out all day. But these Capco boys, Redline Oil, Toyota, Mac Tools, we don't have a lot of partners, but the ones we do, we think highly of, and they're the best. This is pretty cool, man. 1 year to the date. I was kind of thinking we wasn't going to be able to win one of these for a while. And Richard Hogan, Bobby, sometimes us Torrances are hard to deal with, but them guys handle us pretty good, and thank you guys. How about all those guys at home from Capco that are keeping us out here? We appreciate y'all.
It's been a while, but it seems like balance is restored to the universe with that guy holding a Top Fuel Wally. Doug Coletta continues to lead the Top Fuel points.